Here are the top stories for today, August 13, 2019. Malacanang says the government will not tolerate the abuse of foreign nationals working in the country. The Senate is urged to look into the reported spread of fake over-the-counter drugs in the country. The DFA vows to help Filipinos facing deportation in Israel. And the United Arab Emirates launches rehabilitation projects for Marawi City.
Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Malacanang vows to ensure the welfare of workers, including foreign nationals employed in the country. The palace particularly condemns the abuse of workers, such as illegal recruitment. More on this from Rom Dulfo.
Malacanang says the government will not allow any illegal act committed against foreign workers in the Philippines. Presidential spokesperson Sal Panelo condemned the report which showed that a 27-year-old Chinese national fell while handcuffed from the 6th floor of his house in Pamplona 2, Las Piñas City on August 9. Police suspected that the victim, Yang Kang, was being held prisoner by his employer while CCTV footage showed that he was peering out the window before he climbed out.
We condole with the victims of that person, and we cannot allow any illegal act committed in this country by any person, whether a foreigner or our own citizen, against workers of another country working here.
Panelo earlier said no one is exempted from the strict enforcement of Philippine laws. Panelo said the Bureau of Immigration should also establish guidelines in the hiring of foreign workers to prevent illegal recruitment. Following concerns raised on the influx of Chinese nationals in the country, Panelo also denied that there was any shortcoming on the part of the government in preventing illegal recruitment. He has urged the Bureau of Immigration to address the issue, as he notes it has yet to be determined whether these foreigners are illegally staying in the country or not. He also urged Chinese and other foreign workers to report to authorities acts committed by their employers that are in violation of the law. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Rom Dulfo.
Malacanang says there is nothing wrong with government workers and officials accepting gifts as long it is of nominal value. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo defended President Rodrigo Duterte anew from criticism over his statement that police personnel could accept gifts out of gratitude for their service. Panelo says accepting of gifts of limited value is allowed under the Constitution. He said gifts could be given to government workers and officials during birthday parties or weddings. He also noted how Filipinos give gifts in exchange of services out of debt of gratitude or utang na loob. Panelo, however, said government personnel should use their own discretion when they are accepting gifts. He emphasized that the giving of gifts should not be done in anticipation of a favor or in exchange of a favor. He also reiterated that government will not tolerate corruption in the form of accepting bribes or padulas. Panelo said it is the job of Congress to identify the threshold of government workers and officials accepting gifts. Despite Malacanang's more open stance on accepting a nominal amount of gifts, the PNP reminds its personnel not to do anything that may be misinterpreted as abetting corruption. PNP Chief Oscar Albayalde said receiving gifts is prohibited under the Code of Conduct for public officials and employees. Albayalde noted how food items are sent to policemen during holidays and celebrations, which cannot be avoided and are therefore tolerated. However, gifting that involves money and other expensive things and those expecting a favor in return is clearly and strictly prohibited. Aside from graft cases, cops accepting gifts would face administrative cases wherein the maximum penalty is dismissal from service. For his part, PNP spokesperson Bernard Banac said gifting is harmless as long as there is no element of corruption involved and no oppression or abuse of authority is committed. President Rodrigo Duterte earlier said that it is okay for police personnel to receive gifts, especially from those showing gratitude after solving a crime, as it does not constitute bribery or other violation of the law. The Office of the Solicitor General on Monday urged counsels representing respondents in criminal cases to watch their words during hearings. This came after former Senator Rene Sagisag called OSG lawyers puppies for representing the PNP Criminal Investigation and Detection Group, or CIDG. Solicitor General Jose Calida said the former lawmaker should know better than resort to gutter talk against his colleagues. He cited that the OSG is bound by law to act and represent the Republic and the people before any court, tribunal, or commission. PNP CIDG filed sedition charges against 36 personalities linked to the Bicoy videos, a series of viral clips made to discredit the administration during the midterm elections. During the hearing on August 9, the defense questioned the Solgen's authority to represent the PNP CIDG before the proceedings. Sagisag, who is part of the defense, said the OSG was engaged in being a puppy, a term used by communist fronts to describe subservience to the government. President Duterte is not objecting to the furlough requested by detained Senator Laila de Lima, who hopes to see her ailing mother. More on this and other news from around the metro from Janice Cave.
President Rodrigo Duterte is reportedly fine with letting detained Senator Laila de Lima visit her sick mother in Camarines Sur. Senator Bongo said the president sees no problem with allowing de Lima to see her 86-year-old mother, who is in critical condition, as soon as possible. Malacanang, however, says the request for furlough by de Lima, who is detained for her alleged link to the drug trade in Bilibid, is best left to the courts. Meanwhile, the House Committee on Transportation has started its consultations with stakeholders for the creation of a one-year roadmap to solve the traffic problem in EDSA. Among the solutions being studied is the consolidation of the franchises of Metro Manila buses, removal of the boundary system, and modernizing fare collection. The National Economic and Development Authority says the government loses about 3.5 billion pesos daily due to traffic in EDSA. The House Committee on Metro Manila Development earlier said it is seeking another meeting with the Metro Manila Development Authority and the Department of Transportation to tackle the issue. In other news, Manila Water announced a 3-day water interruption starting today until Friday in parts of Quezon City. Around 20,000 households in Barangays Holy Spirit, Pasong Tamo, and Sauyo will experience low pressure to no water service at certain times due to power supply transfer activities. Manila Water is advising affected residents to store enough water to supply their needs during the interruption schedules. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
Still to come, the Senate is urged to look into the reported spread of fake over-the-counter drugs in the country. A tricycle driver in Dapitan is praised for his honesty by returning missing cash and documents. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues. The Senate is being asked to look into the alleged presence and prevalence of counterfeit drugs in the Philippines. A recent report from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime tagged the country as having the highest incidence of fake medicines in Southeast Asia. Senate President pro tempore Ralph Recto said from 2014 to 2017, fake medicines from Pakistan, India, and China reportedly entered the Philippines through an illicit trade network. Locally manufactured counterfeit over-the-counter medicines have also entered the market. Recto noted that the staggering amount of money Filipinos spend yearly for medicines should prod the government to protect their health, safety, and money. Back in 2018, President Duterte warned of the availability of counterfeited paracetamol brands in the country and ordered the arrest of their manufacturers and distributors. The House of Representatives is poised to look into the looming increase in the fee for withdrawing cash from automated teller machines. This after the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas lifted the 6-year moratorium on ATM fee increases. The move stoked concerns that banks would impose as much as 50% hike on ATM fees. Banks currently charge 10 to 15 pesos per interbank ATM withdrawal and 2 pesos per interbank balance inquiry. Makati City Representative Luis Campos Jr. said the government is mandated to protect the interests of consumers. He said the ATM fee hike will affect about 58 million ATM cardholders, most of which are minimum wage earners. BSP Governor Benjamin Diokno meanwhile said despite the lifting of the moratorium, banks cannot easily implement any ATM fee increase. He said any increase depends on market-based pricing and remains favorable to public interest. The Department of Finance forecast inflation to slow down as much as 1.2% this year. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority show that rate of price hikes expanded by 2.4% year-on-year last July from the previous month's 2.7%. Finance Undersecretary Gil Beltran said a big drop on food inflation caused a slower inflation rate last July. Beltran said slower inflation is possible if monthly inflation expands by 0.3% until the rest of the year, although inflation may pick up at 1.7% in November. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Monetary Board earlier slashed the central bank's average inflation forecast for this year from 2.7% last June to 2.6%. For 2020 and 2021, the average inflation forecast was set at 2.9%. The Army reports having foiled attacks by the New People's Army in separate instances over the weekend. Last Sunday, the 94th Infantry Mandirigma Battalion stopped an attack by communist terrorists in Barangay Balogo, Gihulngan City, Negros Oriental. Patrolling troops spotted have suspected NPA rebels who were heavily armed and wearing camouflage uniforms. The soldiers seized from the fleeing men a submachine gun and ammunition. The group was suspected of plotting an attack on a patrol base in Balogo. In South Cotabato, the Army's 27th Infantry Battalion recovered on Sunday a light machine gun and ammunition stashed by NPA rebels at Mount Marbao, Barangay Quematu in Tiboli Town. Government troops initially received information from concerned residents regarding the presence of an arms stash in the area. The Army said the planned attacks were confirmed by 3 NPA rebels who surrendered to their troops last August 9. Police units are set to follow a one-strike policy against illegal gambling in Region 11. Meanwhile, a tricycle driver in Dapitan City is hailed for his honesty. More on these and other news from the provinces from Janice Cave.
The Police Regional Office 11 is set to enforce a one-strike policy against illegal gambling on all units in Davao Region. Police officials who fail to stop the operations of illegal gambling in their areas may get sacked and face charges. The move is part of the PNP's internal cleansing against corruption. Meanwhile, the Department of Social Welfare and Development delivered food packs to island villages in the towns of Carles and Concepcion in Iloilo over the weekend. The DSWD was able to provide over 7,000 food packs to the affected locals. Food supply in the islands was cut off as the Coast Guard disallowed motorized boat operations due to bad weather. Last August 3, 31 people died as 3 motorboats sank at the Iloilo Strait. In Dapitan City, the City Tourism Office hailed a tricycle driver for his honesty. Santiago Sumalpong, a councilor in Barangay Gimputlan, reportedly found a card holder containing cash and important documents while driving his tricycle downtown on Monday. Sumalpong rushed to the police station to surrender them and for the police to reach out to its owner. The tourism office said honest citizens like Sumalpong can boost tourism in Dapitan. In other news, some 1,500 student artists, cultural workers, and other participants from Negros Island availed of scholarships under HANA's scholarship program in culture and the arts in the past 8 months. Colegio San Agustin Bacolod and West Visayas Museum Association offered trainings and seminars with the support of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. A total of 121 participants received certificates of completion for finishing 120 hours of workshops in 6 tracks, including film, dance, theater, musology, weaving, and creative curriculum. The NCCA says with the success of the HANA's scholarship program, it now sees a more dynamic and vibrant culture and arts scene in Negros. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
Up next, the DFA vows to help Filipinos facing deportation in Israel. The United Arab Emirates launches rehabilitation projects for Marawi City. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders. The Department of Foreign Affairs will provide assistance to hundreds of Filipinos in Israel who are facing deportation. Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo made this assurance following reports that hundreds of overstaying Filipino families, particularly mothers and their children, are at risk of being deported. Reports from the United Children of Israel showed that hundreds of Filipino families face deportation over their loss of residency status. Earlier, the DFA said it has already raised the deportation issue with the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The DFA also asked Filipino workers to observe Israel's immigration laws. And in our foreign news, several flights in and out of Hong Kong remain canceled on Tuesday, even as the Hong Kong International Airport reopened amid ongoing protests. Flagship airline Cathay Pacific reports over 200 flights still being canceled. But as early as Tuesday morning, passengers were being reportedly allowed into departure areas, while some flights prepared for boarding or departure. Protesters have also dispersed, although activists are allegedly calling for another protest. Pro-democracy protesters occupied the airport last Friday, with participants joining in from inside and outside the airport, causing disruption of operations. The Hong Kong police has so far arrested 149 people during the series of protests over the past few days. Police identified them as radical protesters that acted lawlessly and caused violence. Marawi City has been seen to recover and become fully livable in 3 years. Mayor Majul Gandamra on Sunday cited as proof the ongoing rehabilitation projects inside and outside the most affected area. Gandamra said the ongoing recovery of unexploded ordnance and the demolition of properties have contributed to the delay in the rehabilitation time frame. About 70 explosives have so far been recovered inside the most affected areas. On the other hand, out of the 6,000 plus structures in Ground Zero, nearly 3,000 demolition permits have been served by the local government unit. Meanwhile, National Housing Authority General Manager Marcelino Escalada clarified that despite the delays, rehabilitation remains on target. Last Friday, the LGU and NHA led the groundbreaking ceremony for the establishment of permanent shelters in Barangay Kilala and Gandongan in Marawi City. About 2,000 housing units will be built in the 39-hectare land and will cater to 2,000 families. The United Arab Emirates is pitching in on efforts to rehabilitate Marawi City. Among the projects it has lined up include the construction of housing and healthcare facilities. Here is our report.
The UAE will launch several intervention projects for the ongoing rehabilitation of war-ravaged Marawi City. UAE Ambassador Hamad Saeed Al-Zabi said the projects are requested by the Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan Foundation and will be funded by the embassy. Al-Zabi was in Marawi on Sunday to visit the displaced families from the 2017 siege by Islamic State-linked militants. The ambassador said the UAE-funded projects will focus on rehab of schools, construction of child and youth center, construction of a center for orphans, and a rural health unit in nearby Butig town in Lanao del Sur. Faisal Mud Nabil, UAE IT manager for the Philippine Embassy, said the projects are already funded for this year and the embassy was only waiting for the local government to identify the beneficiaries. Al-Zabi visited the city's most affected area and the transitory shelter site in Barangay Sabunsongan, where more than 1,000 of internally displaced persons live. The ambassador then headed to the Grand Mosque and the Bato Ali Mosque. It was Al-Zabi's first visit to Marawi City, where he also celebrated Eid al-Adha with the residents who are staying in transitory shelters. The ambassador led the distribution of beef to the displaced families and around 200 sacks of fertilizer and 5 carabaos to farmers of Tamparan, Lanao del Sur. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Rob Dulfo.
The southwest monsoon or habagat will continue to bring cloudy weather and some rainfall over the western parts of the country. Pagasa says the effects of the monsoon will continue in the next 5 days, bringing more rains particularly to northern Luzon and central Luzon. Pagasa is also monitoring a severe tropical storm with international name Crossa outside the Philippine Area of Responsibility or PAR. The storm currently has no significant effect on the country. Let's now check the weather outlook for the rest of the country. Here's another look at today's biggest stories.
Malacanang says the government will not tolerate the abuse of foreign nationals working in the country. The Senate is urged to look into the reported spread of fake over-the-counter drugs in the country. The DFA vows to have Filipinos facing deportation in Israel. And the United Arab Emirates launches rehabilitation projects for Marawi City.
Thank you for watching another edition of the PNA Newsroom. To check out these and other stories, visit the PNA website or follow the Philippine News Agency on Facebook and Twitter. For more stories about the government and how it serves the Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. And that's your daily dose of the latest news and information that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. I am William Theo. Good day.